Hey guys, thanks for checking out my videos. I am an amateur woodworker, but lately I've been inspired by watching some people turning segmented bowls on YouTube, and I thought I would combine my love of spin tops and woodworking and come up with a segmented spin top. I show the process of how I make it, all the way that I turn a top. If you're interested in learning about how to do that, watch this video all the way to the end. By the way, I shot and edited this video along the way, so when I'm making this and talking on the video, I have no idea how long it's going to be, or how it's going to turn out, or if it's going to work. But stick with it to the end. See how it turns out. Hey guys, Dave here. I was down in my shop today and took a look under the bench and realized I still have a ton of these little pieces of wood. They measure about 2.5 by 2.5, and I've got them in all kinds of wood. Babinga, Paduke, Purple Heart, Mordillo, Zebra, Blood, all kinds of different woods. And these have been sitting in my shop since about 1996, 97, something like that. And I've never really had anything to do with them. And then I've been watching some videos on segmented bowls, and I thought, what the heck? I might as well try it. So I'm going to make a segmented spin top. I'm not sure if it's going to balance and play well, but hopefully it's fun to make. And I am definitely an amateur at woodworking stuff, so probably do a lot of stuff wrong along the way, but that's the learning process. Hope it's a lot of fun. Thanks for watching. All right, I guess the first step is figuring out what glue segments type of wood I want to put together. And again, this is mostly about looks and not balance, so I'm just going to put wood that I think looks cool together. Right now I've got the Zebra and some Babinga next to each other. That looks nice. Paduke and that's kind of close. You know what I'd like is maybe something lighter like maple. I don't have any maple cut up, but I got a piece of maple over there. All right, I've been looking at all the different colors of wood here. I have this Babinga, which has got kind of a reddish and some interesting grain going through it. Paduke, which is the orange, kind of an even grain. Zebra, of course, a lot of different interesting look there. This Bloodwood, which kind of is pretty different, I guess. A lot of different looks on different pieces of those wood. Mordillo is kind of this darker wood with dark through it. So, and of course maple, being a maple. I've kind of put them next to each other to kind of give a different look. I figure I'm going to have to make 3 rings to get this thing a little bigger, and then I'll probably have a solid wood base, maybe a solid crown as well. Not sure what those colors will be, or any wood, but this is what I'm going to go with, is these. All right, when figuring out what degree angle to cut on that piece of wood, I just took the 360 degrees in the circle, and I divided it by 8. I wanted 8 segments, which of course gave me 45 degrees. But of course it's 45 degrees on both sides, so I guess that's 22.5. So I'll be cutting each one of these little blocks at 22.5 degrees, being careful to, of course, line them up, making sure it's a good, tight, clean cut for every single one of those so that we have a good chance to glue it up properly. Okay, I'm going to set my miter saw here at 22.5 degrees. There's actually a stop in it for mine. Get it all set. Now, when figuring out how and where to cut, if depending on how wide I leave this bottom is how small the diameter of the circle is going to be. So I guess I have to play with that. Also, I guess I could look at the different grain, which way to cut. I'm going to have the grain coming this way and make my cuts like that. And for this first one, which is going to be the closest down to the base, I'm going to try to cut kind of towards the middle of that square so that the center is kind of tight. I will have that square base for the tip section, so not quite exactly to the point at the bottom. Maybe I'll leave a 1/4 inch or so. I guess this is experimental. We'll see what happens. I do want to make sure I get a good feel on both sides here, because that's a pretty tight area there. And then I want to, maybe I'll work to the corner here and see how that works. One side and now the other side. See, I'm going to lose my spot there. I have to figure something else out. Probably have to put in a temporary fence. I'll get that taken care of now. I just had a piece of trim here that I clamped on both sides to give me a good temporary fence. When I cut through, it'll get me my blade cutting area there. So I will be able to, I'll just... hitting the clamp over here. I better loosen that up, kind of move it off to the side. There we go, that'll be better. All right, looks like I got a better fence now. I can cut this other side here. And I was cutting this way, and I was cutting to the end, right about there. A little bit of flex in that. I don't love that, but we'll see how it works. I'll push it in tight. All right, so what I've made, basically a triangle at the 22.5 degrees on both sides. Gonna have just a small circle in the center. I'll keep cutting the rest and see how it goes. Got them all cut up. Now I'm going to go put them on the bench and see if I did any measurements right or if this is even going to work. I thought I cut these right. Let's see what happens. Okay. All right, it looks like they're looking nice, coming together okay. I saw some videos about how to do the segmenting to, glue them up not as one big section, but as in 2 groups of 4. That way you can kind of fix any of the angles you may have made wrong. I might end up doing that because it looks like something's a little off on one of these. These 4, coming together. Yeah, they look like they're pretty decent. These 4 look pretty decent. Then they come up and one of the angles are slightly off. I'll try that system of putting 4 together, and then flattening it and putting it together. Okay, first things first, I'm going to take the sandpaper here, so 150 grit, and just lightly go over this to make sure I've taken off any bad spots, any of those whiskers or things on the edges that might cause the thing to space out, so when it glues together it won't get a good joint. Make sure that's really nice. Looks like the miter saw did do a really nice job of coming with a straight cut. I didn't get much deflection in the blade or anything, so that was good. And there isn't hardly any of those little whisker hanging off fibers, so looks like that's going to be pretty easy to do. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue them up, and I'm going to use some tape as like a clamp to hold it all together. By the way, if you have any wax paper around, that's really good for doing your gluing so it doesn't get all over the bench and stick to stuff. So, all right, I'm going to sand that other side and get ready to glue. Put some glue on. On that side, get one side of each one of these where they're going to be coming together. All right, there we go. That surface, and that surface. Looks like we're all set. Now I just need to make sure I get a good slide joint together, get them together, kind of slide them together good. Put them together, kind of slide them together good. And finally, all right. Now, I know that I'm going to be turning the outside, so I don't really have to match the outsides up much. I'm actually going to be boring the inside out to make this a hollow spin top, so that's not super critical either. The real critical part is that the tops all line up. It looks like they're pretty good so far. So now, some tape. Just like that. I'm starting on one end and working my way down along the outside edge first. And now I will pull it all the way tight over here. And when I pull it tight, hopefully those joints will get pulled a little more together as well. Okay, looks good. Yeah, those joints look decent. Just gonna take a hammer, lightly tap down on those joints. Feels good. All right, that side's done. I'm gonna do the other side. By the way, just so you can see up close. A little bit of glue marks on that. That's okay. I'll either be sanding these really flush at the end or maybe even running them through the planer to get a perfectly smooth straight spot. Oh, that side looks really nice too. So, all right, next one. Okay, we've been sitting for a long time, so glue joints should be all set and nice. Oh yeah, fits together good. Let's hope it did this on this one too. Yeah, it looks like the joints are nice and tight there. Good on that side, good on this side. Put them together, and hopefully you can kind of see there's those gaps I was telling you about. Well, the advantage of doing these in sets of 2 like this is now I can take them and sand them a little bit to make that mate nice and straight, hopefully. Let's see. All right, looks like I've done enough sanding now that I've brought those joints in nice and tight. It's not matching up on the outside or inside at all, but again, this is going to be turned on the lathe for the outside, and I'm actually going to be hollowing the inside. So really, I just want those joints to look good. So I just need to put some glue on and clamp it up. Oh, and I've went and got some of these hose clamps, combined 3 of them together to make sure I could do the final piece of pulling it all nice and tight. So here we go. Okay, good amount of glue on there. We're going to match those joints up. And let's clamp it up. Probably should hook this up to a drill to go a little faster, but that's okay. Okay, I've got the glue up done on these. Now I'm going to do is I'm going to sand them. I wish I could run them through a planer, but they're probably too small for safety reasons on that. I can't plane them. Wish I had a drum sander I could run them through to do it, but I guess I'll just try it with these hand sander and see how it turns out. I've been doing some working and some figuring, and I think what I want to do is put some Baltic birch plywood as the tip base, the crown, and in between each segmented layer. It's it's got a lot of plies in there. It's gonna look pretty cool. I got a 3/4 inch piece that I cut down, resawed, and got down to about 1/4 of an inch that I'm going to put between each segment. So there's just going to be a little bit of a look there. And then the top and bottom, I'm going to put the full 3/4 in. So I just got to rip this down, cut it up, and see how it goes. All right, well now it's time for the glue up. I'm going to start with one of these Baltic birch plywood that's going to be down at the bottom of this blank. No idea how that's going to turn out, I guess, but that's going to be there. Next, one of these pieces, make sure they're good and flat. You know, it looks like a nice tight joint there. When I clamp it down, it'll hold good. Next, I was going to put in one of these 1/4-inch pieces of Baltic birch. I'm going to grain the same way and lining that up. Next, I wanted to go with this piece right here. And I don't want to line up it. I want to have it off of the other segmented piece. So it's going to sit off the edge a little bit. And I'm kind of centering it on the board, although it probably doesn't matter because I'm boring it out and turning it anyway. So we'll see what happens there. Another 1/4-inch piece, lining that up. And then finally this one back to match the bottom one. And then finally the top crown part was going to be with this here. All right, looks like it's pretty good. I like the order, I like the way it looks. Now time to glue it up. Okay, I got all the glue laid up. Now I'm just gonna clamp it up tight. Okay. All right, looks to me like glue squeezing out most everywhere. Time to let it set up. All right, glue should be all set. Solid for sure. All right, well, I think I want to cut off these end corner pieces and figure out how to get it on the lathe next. All right, well, I've got the whole block, got the edges cut off of it, got the center marked on the side that's the tip side. So I'm going to mount that into the lathe and start to form some kind of Spintop out of this. I know I got to take a lot of material out, but that's okay. I'm just frigging it out. And I've decided that I'm actually going to screw on this faceplate here because where those screws are in the end are going to be taken off when I go to put the tip in. So, all right, got that all taken care of. Looks like the glue joints are good so far. Got it all mounted up. Now I'm going to put it into the lathe and have to take a ton down just to get it into a circle piece, but looks like it's time to get going. All right, so here we are putting the stock into the lathe, just twisting it on quick, making sure it's good and tight. All right, bringing up the tail stock and putting in a live center because I want to make sure I'm supported on the back, especially when taking off so much material. Now I got it all set in there. I'm going to make sure I bring my rest up. Got to get everything set. Oh, and don't forget the speed. I want to get this probably spinning pretty slow at the start. I don't want this thing causing a lot of vibration on the lathe. So I put it on a slow speed just to take her down. I'm going to start with a large gouge to just slowly bring the edges down so that we start to get a round shape. All right, I'm continuing to round out the stock, making sure to get all those corners off, get it down. Thought I'd bump the speed up now, get that speed going, and keep on cleaning it up. Got my skew chisel out here. I'm going to start forming the crown slightly, and of course keep getting it round. One thing I'd do over again if I could is I would have definitely glued up smaller sections. I'm taking off a lot of material here. Took a lot of time, plus a waste of material. So think about that if you're going to make one of these yourself. All right, one important thing to look at here is how wide the top is versus how tall the top is. oftentimes when I'm making a top, I try to make sure that the height of the top is about the same as the width. Here I've got my exhaust fan running so loud you couldn't hear what I was saying, but in essence, make sure when you get that width about the same as the height of the top with the tip section in. All right, one thing I really like to do here at this point, before I do the hollowing, is I like to put a drill all the way through to get a center at this end as well as this end of the work, so that you have a true center. When we flip it, we'll be able to find that center again. It helps in the balancing process. Of course, with this top, I'm not sure if we're ever going to be able to balance it, but we'll see. I've got a long drill bit here, make sure it's long enough to get through. There we go. See how that lines up. A little bit of flex in the bit. Yeah, more than I like. It's almost like when the bit gets lined up in there, it's not lining up with what the center of the workpiece was. I think what I'll do here is I will do a smaller bit just to get a starting hole. That way it can follow through all the way. There we go. Got the same size as that long bit, but if I start it with this, I'll be sure it's in the right spot. And this one doesn't deflect as much. All right, I got to make sure that I put that hole in the dead center and I take it out just to get the starting hole. When I'm done with that starting hole, then the big long drill bit will not deflect as much. So I'll be putting the big long drill bit in here and then drilling all the way through. It's again pretty important to drill all the way through your workpiece so that when you take it out and flip it over later to work on the tip section, that you're actually going to have a true center all the way through. All right, Forstner bit's all chucked up. I'm now going to go in, and I can go in as far as, as far as the whole bit can go, and I'm not going to be going too deep. So I'm going to go in the whole bit's depth, just so I can start to hollow it out. After that, I'll bring the tool rest up and I'll start to hollow it out another way. But for now, we'll just get it started. Okay, now that I've got the Forstner bit bored out the center, I'm now going to use some tools to go in and open that crown hole a little bit more, kind of clean it up. Okay, time to start to bring it down more to a smaller diameter. I'm probably looking at making about a 3-4 inch size top. It's currently like 5, so I gotta take a lot more off. All right, we're starting to get some shaping down, a little bit of hollowing, not a lot yet, getting the shape down. I'm gonna be bringing the tip section down smaller, but of course I gotta watch out for the screw length that are going through the face plates. I can't go that deep. I want to make this end here, the tenon, the right size for my jaws. I didn't measure that yet. Let's hope that works. Kind of liking the shape it's getting take right now. Still a little bit wide on how the diameter is here. I am sitting at approximately 4.3 inches here, so probably want to take it down at least another down to 4 at least, I think. Maybe even a little more. We'll see. All right, time for a little more hollowing out. I put the tool rest as close as I can to the crown, go in with a scraper and just lightly touch the edges to clean it out a little bit more. All right, one of the hardest parts to figure out is how narrow the tip section gets with how you're hollowing on the inside. If you obviously hollow too much on the inside, and then when you flip it later and bring it down to the tip and you cut through it, and you got a piece of garbage on your hands. So that's really the hardest part. I found this gauge is one of the best gauge for me. I can go in, get the actual size of what it is. So right now I know here at the top, right here I got an inch thickness, that's plenty. As I go in, a little bit under an inch. As I get down towards the bottom, I am about 3/4 of an inch thick right there. When I'm working with Delrin, 3/4 of an inch is forever. With a piece of wood, not quite as much. I'm thinking about probably making this about a 1/2 inch wall throughout. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna work on the outside down here towards the tip section to kind of figure out what that's gonna be. If you're trying to make your own spin tops, it's going to be experimentation. If I didn't have this faceplate screwed on, I'd be able to get a lot closer down there, but obviously those screws are going through right here. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to have to, make a rough guess and flip it and just take down the tip at that point, but we'll see. And this is what I mean here at that tip section. Obviously right now, the diameter of that tip area is giant. We're looking at, right now we're at almost 2.5 inches right there, a little over 2.5 inches right there. And we're going to bring it down all the way to probably, boy, it's going to be, I'm guessing my tips are about a 1/2 inch. I have some pre-made metal tips that I'll be putting in. But so obviously this has got to come down a ton in that last 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to start working right here to bring this down. That way I'll be able to measure on the inside to figure out my hollowing that way. Well, unfortunately, the camera wasn't rolling when the Baltic birch failed. It's amazing. The Baltic birch itself, the plies itself are what came apart. The glue joints are all strong, but the Baltic birch broke through the piece out. I don't know. I think I'm going to just try to re-glue it back up. It's got a really good seam. I can go right back on those plies. I'll put some glue on, maybe put some pressure with the tailstock, and hope I can fix this. All right, I've left this here to set up overnight so I can get this to, I put this little centering ball in here to be able to help put some pressure on the top so that it would glue up and set properly. And now it's time to start doing some more turning. One thing I'm starting to notice might be a problem is there's only 3/4 of an inch that I left for that tip section this way. So when I turn it down, all the way down to that 1/2 inch of the tip, I might run into a problem of the diameter of that Forstner bit being too big. I'm realizing a lot of the Delrin tops I made, I used a smaller diameter to go through here. So I may end up adding a tip section a little bit bigger. So one thing that I haven't mentioned very much is that I've been sharpening the tools along the way. I use actually a belt sander and a grinder, depending on what angle I want to get a good sharp edge on the tool. And then I come back with a coarse and a fine side of the stone to kind of give it a hone on it. I'm really an amateur at doing this, but it seems to be working, but the tools do dull really fast. Okay, working on the final hollowing out. I'm going to try to get down to between a 1/2 inch and 3/4, maybe 5/8, somewhere in there. Wall thickness, especially here at the top. Going towards the bottom, I'm going to probably leave that as thick as it can be. I'm sure I should have some other kind of tool rest that goes in there to support this better. This is what I got. I'm making sure to keep a good positive angle on that so that I don't grab and rip the thing up. All right, got the inside down, time to do some sanding. Well, ran into another small issue with the the Baltic birch. As I'm getting down here on the crown, I'm right where I'm liking it, and all of a sudden come across a knot that was inside one of the plies. So it's looking pretty weird. I'm gonna have to try to clean it off to make it smooth. I might lose a lot of the plywood here. I don't know, we'll see. When working so close to the crown, I wanted to make sure to be safe and supported, so I put in the green ball that I put in there in the live center so that it would be good and supported on that end while I was cleaning up that Baltic birch. All right, I'm going to flip it around now, and I'm going to put it in my Nova chuck. I think I've got the tenon here able to grab onto that, and then I'll take the faceplate off and turn the bottom and see if how much of a tip section I'm going to have to add to this. All right, got it flipped around. It looks like the tenon's going to be the right size. Got lucky there because I didn't actually ever measure it. What I do is I bring up my live center to go and match up with the hole that I drilled through in the beginning to make sure that I have a very good true center. And once I have that, then I get it tightened down. Don't want to go too tight because that's only about a little over 1/4 inch thick on that thing. I don't want to crack it. So I'm just going to go enough to get a good hold on it. Okay, looks good. Give it a spin, hope it spins true. All right, looks good. Okay, so this is where it's going to be tough. I am trying to determine the angle to come down at to match up to my tip section, but I no longer can know how thick the diameter is on the hollowing. So as I'm coming up, I'm worried about right here where the 3/4 tip section is, because that's where I drilled with the Forstner bit. I know before I flipped it, I had at least a good 1/2 inch or so, but now as I form down here, I'm worried about breaking through here. I'm going to leave the video running here as I try to bring it down to what I think is the right size, and we'll see what happens. I guess I'm saying, well, we'll see what happens a lot today, but here's the tip I'm going to try to put in this thing right here. This tip, as you can see, it's made of steel, and right here is the important part because that's what I got to match up down at the bottom. So if you don't have a tip when you're making one of these, you can, obviously make your own tip to fit your top. I like to do it this way because I got a really nice steel tip. This is about just over 1/2 inch here. So I got to bring this thing down. Right now we're at, oh boy, looks like almost 1 inch. So I got to bring it down a full 1/2 inch here. So I'm going to do it. Leave the camera running. We'll see what happens. It's looking good, looks nice. Being that this is going to be a fixed tip top, all I have to do is now open up the hole big enough for the shank on the tip. And looks like I got to come down a little bit more on the end there to match this. What I often do is I put the tip in and then bring the wood down to it. So I think I'm going to set that up now. All right, got my drill bit mounted up to drill the hole for fitting this. I actually drilled just a touch undersized so that, because I know the wood's going to have a little bit of play to it and I'll be able to press it in. All right. I'm also going to hit the face with the tool just to make sure it's true on the end. Last thing when I do this, I want to make sure that when I do that face, I actually have it a little bit inverted so that it's going to fit tight up against the side of the tip. So I come back with a finer tool and make sure just to clean that up so I have a slight invert. All right, here's something I do that I don't know if it's a spectacular idea, but it's something I came up with that appears to work. I get the drill bit that just barely starts into the wood, that's this diameter, and because I want it to be tight, I don't get it to push all the way in. I then take a live center, and with my live center, I press the tip in. While it's spinning. Now that I got it pressed in, it's good and tight. Now I'm going to clean it up down to that metal part. Get this down and then do some sanding. While I clean it up, I keep the live center on the tip because I don't want it to all of a sudden break out. So I keep a little bit of support on the tip while I'm giving these last touches on the ends. All right, now it's time to do some sanding. I'm going to start here with an 80 grit, go to a 150, and finish with a 220 grit. I won't make you watch all the sanding here, but just rest assured I hand sanded quite a bit with each grit to make sure I had a nice smooth surface. At one point I did need to use a little bit of glue and sawdust to fill a void in one of the plywood areas. It appeared to take pretty well. When I'm done doing the sanding, it's time for a finish. I haven't really done a lot of research on putting on finish on a lathe for wood things. I've done a lot of Delrin plastic, and for that, a quick wax after sanding works awesome, makes it look great. But with this, I found that I have this finishing wax that I'm gonna give it a try. The directions on the wax said to apply a thin coat, let it dry for about 15 minutes, and then buff out. So that's what I did. I put a thin coat onto the wood, wiping it on slowly as you can see, and then following this, I turn it on high speed and really buff it out nice. Okay, I got it off the lathe. Now I'm gonna clean out the inside a little bit. I can tell that I am super thin in that danger area, but hopefully it doesn't break when I throw it. We'll see. All right, it's been really fun making this video as I go type of thing. I've never even thrown this thing yet, so I'm kind of excited about doing that in a little bit. But I can tell you that that danger zone area down here was super thin. I didn't even measure it, but I can almost feel it, and I can hold it up and almost see through it. So what I ended up doing was getting some 2-part epoxy and filling just the bottom little cavity where that Forstner bit had drilled in to make it stronger, to make it solid. So I'm happy about that. Hopefully it plays good. We'll see. Weird with all the different woods. Weight-wise, it might be totally thrown off, but sure looks nice. Well, I haven't done any of the measurements yet. Now's the time to do it. Let's take a look. Diameter of the top overall, I remember I was shooting for like 3 to 4 inches, and right now it is 3.85. So 3.85, it's a little over 3 3/4. The overall height of the top, from the very tip to the top of the crown, is, let's see here, hard to get that to sit on the edge there, but it looks like it's about 4.05, a little over 4 inches. So seems like it, they're not exact, but it seems like a good number ratio. The thickness of the walls. The crown, that was the small crown part, that is about 1/4 of an inch. at the top, right up here at the very top of the part, we've got a 0.64. As we go down, 0.55, 0.44, 0.36, and that's about where it ends, 0.36, right about there. And then of course we get to the bottom where the tip section is. So that seems pretty good. Now let's check the weight. In grams, this weighs 192 grams. Not bad. And I think the look overall is super cool. Take a look up close. You can see we have that really nice looking Baltic birch right there. The different sections of maple and Mordillo. Here, a little harder to tell the difference between the Padauk and the Bloodwood, and then the Bubinga and the Zebra. I think having the little tiny strips of Baltic birch kind of made those woods separate. Kind of nice. Okay, moment of truth. I took a string off my other big top, wrap it around. It looks beautiful. Sure hope it plays that way too. It came back like a ball. I guess maybe the weighting of the woods didn't work. Tell you what, I'm gonna try to put in some balancing putty and see what happens. Oh, and I just realized, tough to catch a flying piece of metal like that. Ouch. Okay, so I've used balancing putty in the past. It's kind of that tacky stuff that you use to put pictures on the wall. 3M tacky stuff, I think. Anyways, I've used it before, but I don't even know if this can balance. That thing was really screwed up. And it's usually a hit or miss where you're putting it. But I realized that the bottom was kind of thin, the top was kind of heavy, so maybe the bottom needs a little more weight. So I'm gonna take, I got a big chunk here, I'll probably take half of this. And I'm gonna put it in the bottom of the top to kind of give it more weight at the bottom. I could put it to one side or the other side, but I guess for now I'm just gonna center it, just see if it's bottom weight it needs. It could need bottom left, bottom right, could be top left, top right. If you're ever trying to balance a top, it's a guessing game. But well, here we go. If it comes back like a ball, I might not try to catch it. That hurt. All right, take two, let's see it work. Hey, look at that. Obviously a little bit of wobble to it, but I bet if I play with that putty, I can get it to spin better. You know what? I'm calling it a success. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. I want to do some more of this segmented stuff. I don't know if it's a Spintop or a bowl or whatever, but I really enjoyed it. If you have any comments about how I did woodwork, if you're an expert and you have tips for me, feel free to give them to me. All of us can learn. If you have ideas on different woods and stuff like that, let me know. I'm happy to be here to help and to experiment right along with you. Thanks again for watching.